I have a belief with the fantasy genre that I know not everybody agrees with, but hear me out anyways. Anyone can write fantasy. It is incredibly easy to do. Kids do it all the time. The various worlds of make-believe are a child's introduction to the genre. If you can think it, you can do it. This, of course, has led to many fantasy stories that all share similar elements taken from popular fiction. It's hard to imagine elves and dwarves without harking back to Tolkien. Even in human-centric stories, you have knightly codes from King Arthur legends and magic that's become this weird amalgamation of several sources, but is always easily identifiable. And whenever you see a battle between angels and demons, chances are there is never going to be a reason given as to why. It's just casually understood that angels are good, demons are evil, and they fight because good and evil are always at war. Now, while anyone can write fantasy, not everybody can write good fantasy. To me, one of the easy ways to tell the difference is to look at how many common themes you can see from other stories. How many things are original in this work before you, and most importantly, how well is it presented? You can have a fantasy world that is a riff on Tolkien if you choose, and it can work out perfectly fine, but if your world is not engaging, your character's not interesting, and your story not remarkable, then there's not much there to differentiate it from the crowd. So today we are talking about an animated series which looks at the traditional tale of angels and demons. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today, the 2014 series by Studio Mappa, Rage of Bahamut Genesis. Let's jam. Okay, so, story time. Thousands of years ago, there was Bahamut, the biggest, most badass dragon who ever lived. He threatened to destroy all of creation purely for the lulz and the fact that he had a lot of pent-up rage, hence the title. The god Zeus and the devil Satan sacrificed themselves to lock Bahamut away and turn themselves into magical keys that must never ever under any circumstances be combined for fear that Bahamut will be awakened and continue his rage spree. Fast forward to present day, where a devil girl named Amira somehow successfully steals the god key from its angelic fortress and manages to hide herself in the human realm, now with the goal of reuniting with her mother in a place called Helheim. Unfortunately, she doesn't know how to get there. Enter our cocky and boasting rogue character Favro, who, while attempting to score with some ladies, claims he knows the path to Helheim and offers to take Amira there in exchange for a kiss, not realizing that she is actually a demon. Favro gets locked into a demonic contract to take Amira to her destination despite not actually knowing where it is. On top of all of this, his once best mate Kaisar is trying to catch and kill him for what he apparently did to his noble family. Angels are going nuts because the god key was stolen, and most devils couldn't give less of a rat's ass except for those who are, behind the entire plot. Also, Joan of Arc is there for... well, actually, I don't know why. Really? This leads to one of my major problems with this series, which is that most of the show's most prominent figures all come from other stories and legends. On the devil side of things, you have three separate characters named Satan, Lucifer, and Beelzebub, despite historically all being different names for the same creature, the devil. The angels are named Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, and Uriel, common names of archangels that have been around since forever, and the human forces have a holy knight, Jeanne d'Arc, who has the exact same story as the Maid of Orleans herself. Sure, our 3/4 main characters don't seem to be based off of anything that much, but that's because in my mind, they're the player characters. See, while watching this show, I couldn't help but keep feeling like I was watching a very well-animated version of some guy's D&D campaign. One where the DM is bad at coming up with unique characters, so he just rips them from other media, because why the hell not? Favro and Kaisar even fit into this theory quite well, with Favro being a devilish rogue who ends up having to save the world because of plot reasons, and Kaisar being the most ridiculously accurate version of a lawful good paladin that I have seen in recent memory. The plot itself is not that remarkable and sadly predictable. At some point, you know that Bahamut is going to awaken. You can't call the show Rage of Bahamut without at some point actually, letting him rage. But because him raging will destroy the world and all of creation, we have to have him either locked up again or destroyed, so the ending of the show can be predicted before the show even really gets started. Beyond that, every event in the middle can be predicted with the following phrase:
Evil will always triumph, because good is dumb.
The angels of this story, for some reason or another, choose to take a major back seat to everything, preferring not to get involved in the realm of man despite, losing control of the God Key. It's like they are under some kind of silly Star Trek Prime Directive thing where they can't interfere, which is extremely dumb because the devils and demons have zero qualms about twisting the wills of man to do their bidding, and that unfortunately happens quite a lot. The series also doesn't have much in the way of plot twists, though it seriously tries to have them, which is the problem. And by the end, most of the twists just happen to be a take on, "Ha-ha! Fooled you!" because a devil was behind it all along.
It was those demons.
I tell you, those demons did it! Demons, I tell you! Demons, you hear me? It's the demons! The damn demons! The damn demons!
And that clip from Karis will make more sense shortly. Give me a minute. The two silver linings for me in this whole adventure was Favreau and the necromancer Rita. Favreau, despite being a Han Solo roguelike character, was played off as an intelligent guy. Just the right man in the wrong place, as it were, who tried to kiss the wrong type of girl. It's his humor and bravado towards the whole thing that was surprisingly entertaining, though I question his taste in hairstyle, supporting both an afro and a mullet. I did not know that combination was possible. But sure, why not? And Rita, as a character, was even better, being the undead child necromancer who has lived for over 200 years and is seriously tired with your shit. Her deadpan sarcasm and magical ability in clutch moments is one of the few things that gave me hope for this story. Sadly, her role as secondary character is as far as she got, despite totally having the personality to go ahead and just do everything herself. Of course, as with all the things that I look at, the ending is paramount, though I'll just reiterate that the ending was known before the show even really got started, and personally, I didn't feel anything when the final credits rolled. There were several questions the show keeps unanswered, and for some reason, almost everything went back to a semi-status quo in the final moments, leaving us with this feeling that nothing much has changed, which is slightly depressing. Overall, the entire series reminds me of a medieval fantasy version of the movie series Karis, which is somewhat unsurprising when you consider that they share the same director. A lot of decent ideas done up by people who perhaps couldn't think of the best ways to execute them, so they just riffed on things that have been done before. Everything with this show, of course, was based off of a social media card game for mobile that, to be fair, I haven't played. However, I doubt there was very much story to it, so they really probably just made things up as they went along, which would explain quite a few things, actually. But the production values were extremely high, considering, which is a major plus in the show's favor. Studio Mappa was the one in charge of production, and Mappa is a studio with fairly high production values, but the entertainment value from them is fully dependent on the directors and the story staff for any individual production. As such, this series looks well done, especially considering that the studio just came off of producing Terror in Residence the season before. The fights are elegant and well designed, the characters are unique looking even from a distance, and the fantasy aesthetics from the set pieces to even the demonic attire was really well done. The slight downside in my mind was the use of 3D CGI for several elements, most notably the Platinum Dragon himself. The CG for him was not horribly designed, nor was he particularly jarring, but to my mind he just wasn't the same as the caliber of 2D animation that surrounded him. I've always been a fan of CGI when it blends seamlessly, but it didn't do that here, so until I see a reason to change my viewpoint on the whole thing, it's a slight negative in my books. The music didn't contain too much to talk about, despite the fact that if I ever DM a campaign again, most of this music and the entire soundtrack is going to be thrown onto a playlist that I'm going to have playing in the background while we game. And I was not, however, a giant fan of the opening sequence, particularly the music. There was nothing wrong with it, per se, and for any other series it would have been a great opening, but I found it to be a rather strange choice for Rage of Bahamut. Like, you have this medieval fantasy series with magic and dragons and sweeping orchestrations, but then the show decides to start off with the metal opening with broken English. I guess I just wasn't a fan of that combination personally, but if you simply want to enjoy the music for the music's sake, it'll do just fine, I'm sure. Rage of Bahamut is a series that means well and tries hard. There's nothing to this series that is horrible, there's no glaring sins that it committed or horrendous feats that it acted on, and ultimately the series just suffers from an overly cliche plot, and despite its higher than average production values, suitable musical score, and surprisingly good dub given the material, overall it just doesn't come off to me as much else other than average. It's not bad, but it's not great. And in a genre that is full of similar material, not just in anime, but in a multitude of other media, average is just not good enough. Now, who would I recommend this series to? Well, honestly, I doubt that it'll be one that'll pop into my head on its own. Like, if someone came to me looking for a fantasy series, there are other options that I would most certainly mention first, and this would probably only come up as a last-ditch scouring of the genre if the person in question had already seen most of, if not all, of what I would mention to them. As such, I unfortunately have to give Rage of Bahamut Genesis the recommendation to skip it. Good animation and solid sound with both music and dub does not an engaging anime always make. They can cover up many of the faults and be a pretty spectacle, which I will agree the series definitely is, but beyond that there is not much else to it. Like, I could have just told you to stream it, but even then I feel like that's a stretch because there are so many other shows out there that I would recommend for you to watch before this one. Maybe perhaps it'll be a bit more worth it when its second season comes out, but even based off of the few promotional materials I've seen of that series, I don't know if we're going to get anything beyond just, more of the same. I wouldn't say to avoid this series, but I just can't give you a reason to seek it out in all honesty. If you did want to, however, then at the time of this video, the series has been licensed in North America by Funimation Entertainment and is available in home video formats as well as for streaming on their website if you happen to have access to it. The review copy for this video was lovingly provided by the wonderful folks over at RightStuffAnime.com, a fine purveyor of anime DVDs, Blu-rays, and other such merchandise for you to enjoy. You can pick up Rage of Bahamut Genesis from them among many others, because if it is in print, they have it. And for ultimate anime recommendations. Oh my god, where do I start? Alright, how about this? I'm just gonna list off a bunch of names that I would watch again before this. Ready? Okay. Slayers, Fate Stay Night, Log Horizon, Spice and Wolf, Princess Mononoke, Claymore, Berserk, Shauna, Mushishi, Fullmetal Alchemist. Hell, I might even put Akamika Kill in here before Bahamut, though I'm not certain that I would. Regardless, it'll probably be the most controversial statement of this video, I'm sure. There's just a lot of shows in the fantasy genre that you should watch. And it's one of my personal favorite genres, in part because of how vast and inclusive it can be. So, there is so much there for you to watch if you haven't already, and in most cases I prefer that you did that over this. And that's it for me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and hey, if you like what I do here and feel like helping out, then please consider going and checking out my Patreon page, and if you feel it within your heart, also consider donating. Very special thanks to Grace Anderson, Lulika Adachi, Calhoun Boy, Victor Ekmark, Nikolai Gray, Joshua Garcia, Mark Roby Showed, and Halo Millennium for donating already. You guys are all especially awesome, and I thank you. Until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.